Hi beautiful beings, it's Alex of Caddy Star Astrology. This is my full moon in Gemini video for December 11th, December 12th, depending on where you are on the planet. This is our last full moon of 2019. Hard to believe. However, it kind of already feels like we're in 2020, honestly. Ever since Jupiter entered Capricorn, we've had this flooding of planning and focus and opportunities, all of this Capricorn energy that really has us looking, projecting into the future, especially in the beginning of next year. So it kind of already feels like 2020. New Year's Eve kind of feels irrelevant, but it's not. We're still in 2019 apparently, and we're going to be talking about the full moon in Gemini this video. But before we go there, and if you watch my channel, you know that I don't think I've ever done this that I can remember. I do want to give a shout out to the jewelry line 1144. They sent me this absolutely beautiful Egyptian Scarab necklace that is so shiny and I love so much. And I'm saying this to say thank you, but also to encourage all of us to support creatives and artists when we do our holiday shopping this holiday season. One of the biggest complaints that I hear in my sessions is from people that are working jobs they don't like because they can't support themselves by doing what they would like to do creatively or otherwise. Super common. Being an artist is a struggle. And I use the word artist loosely here. I use the word art to refer to anything that we have to uniquely bring to the table that doesn't involve directly working for someone else's vision or dream, right? So the way I see this really shifting is if we make a huge effort to support those that are attempting to live from their visions. So whether or not that's 1144, and I'm going to put their website and Instagram in the description box so you can check out their beautiful jewelry, or some other artist that you love. I think that putting some attention in that area is really important, and that's definitely what I'm doing this holiday season. In fact, if you follow me on Instagram, tomorrow I'm going to curate in my Instagram story a little list of my favorite artists, some of which I'm going to be buying from this holiday season to maybe give some of you some ideas for holiday shopping. Anyways, let's get right into the chart. Pull it up. All right. So this full moon is pretty straightforward, honestly. And what I see coming through the strongest is that there's just a lot going on for all of us, especially mentally. And being that it's a full moon in Gemini that has to do with our mental space, it kind of feels like a full moon full of mental activity. And there's a couple things that make it seem like our plate is almost stacked just a little bit too full, or at the very least full. For one, we can see that this full moon is being squared by Neptune. And when Gemini, which represents the mind, squares Neptune, this can definitely lead to a feeling of, it could be confusion, it could be disarray, lack of full clarity, lack of confidence is a big one. It can be difficult to feel fully confident sometimes when things aren't super, super clear, right? And because Neptune is the planet of illusion and sometimes deception, it has this kind of smoke and mirrors quality sometimes. There could be some level of illusion or deception regarding something involving this full moon, either from an outside party or simply just an illusory nature to how we're thinking about things and the way that we feel about things not being super clear. Because of this Neptune element, it just looks a little bit messy in our mental space. And Mercury is the ruler of Gemini, so we look at Mercury and we see that Mercury has moved out of Scorpio, hallelujah, and into Sagittarius. And Sagittarius thinks big. Mercury and Sagittarius can kind of exaggerate details, think of the big picture, think of taking a trip, going off to foreign lands. Mercury in Sagittarius is about the big visions in life. Where would I go if I had no fear? What is possible for me? And then we look over at our Capricorn lineup over here, and we can see that Venus has squeezed her way in between Saturn and Pluto, which is very cute, actually. She's kind of being walked down the aisle by these two thugs, Pluto at 21 and Saturn at 19 degrees. So Venus in between Saturn and Pluto, to me, basically translates to really being 100% committed, being married almost to our goals right now. Being really dedicated to getting some things planned out, particularly with a focus on the beginning of next year. Looking at what 2020 looks like, what doors are opening. Jupiter, of course, now in Capricorn, they're at 2 degrees. We talked about that last week. Lots of Capricorn energy. And one thing about Capricorn, Capricorn is so focused on achievement and getting ahead in life, making something of oneself, that like one of the hallmarks of somebody with a Capricorn moon, if they go to a cocktail party, for example, one of the first questions you could find a Capricorn moon or a Capricorn individual asking a stranger is what they do for a living. What do you do? Sort of like, what are you working on in this lifetime? So with all of this Capricorn energy focused on that, some of us may find ourselves taking on this Capricorn quality of not really having the bandwidth for anything that is not directly related to or supportive of our goals right now. And with a Gemini moon, a full Gemini moon, Gemini having to do with communication with others and all of the things that make up communication, text messages, emails, phone calls, short journeys. Gemini deals with short journeys. Sagittarius deals with foreign travel. Travel can definitely be coming up, making plans for travel coming up and into 2020. But with this square to Neptune, there can be, again, lack of clarity, perhaps a subtle feeling of not knowing if we can accomplish it all, not knowing if we're ready. Some of us are being thrown big opportunities right now. Really being asked to raise our bar, meet a new challenge, grow up, mature, take on more responsibility. And there may be a feeling of, oh my God, can I even do all of this? And the ruler of Gemini, Mercury in Sagittarius, Sagittarius being the highest truth, the highest vision, Mercury in Sag is saying, yes, you are ready, but it means stepping into the highest version of yourself. And one brief aside before we move on about that Neptune square is that when it's squaring Neptune, if any feelings of lack of clarity and or lack of self-confidence are coming up, it could be coming from the subconscious, Neptune and Pisces, or a behavior that's linked to the subconscious. Mars is in a really beautiful exact trine to Neptune. Mars in Scorpio, ready to plunge deeply towards our ideals. Neptune in Pisces. So that's a really positive influence driving us ahead. There's a lot of drive in this chart. It's just like the mind is like a little bit overloaded. Like, oh my God, I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to send this out. I got to talk to that person. I got to go to the store. I got to do my holiday shopping. How are we going to get it done? And so with this much implication towards a very full mental space, let's talk a little bit about Mercury. So here's our symbol for Mercury. Kind of looks like a little devil, and it definitely can be when it's not purified and mastered, which is exactly what we're going to be talking about here. The symbol for Mercury has a crescent shape at the top of it. This crescent represents the moon, which represents our subconscious. Then we have a circle below the crescent. The circle represents the sun or the ego, the self-consciousness or consciousness of the self. Below that, we have the cross of the four elements, otherwise known as the cross of matter. We see the cross of matter heavily implicated in the sign of Saturn because Saturn deals with mostly matter and things of the third dimension density. Anyway, the symbol for Mercury represents the raising or the elevating of the powers of the subconscious above those of the ego mind. And that when we do this, this creates the channel for super consciousness to come through. So elaborating on that, that basically means getting out of our ego mind or the lower vibration of Mercury, the lower level, which is this kind of rat race mind. I got to do this, I got to do that. The part of us that is sometimes thinking of something else while someone else is talking. The mind chatter. This mind can be fooled by our senses. It can think things that are not true about ourselves and other people. It can get caught in cyclical patterns which are not healthy, which cause stress. And more than anything, this lower mind, ego mind, can cause us to think of ourselves as mere mortals that are a slave to the life and death cycle. Whereas our higher mind and the purified powers of the subconscious, again represented by the crescent, has a certainty of immortality because our higher mind knows that we live forever. Our higher mind knows that we are eternal spirit existing in a temporary human vessel, and that when the time comes to transition out of this one, we will adopt another form, continue the journey. The higher mind knows that time does not exist. The higher mind is not fooled by the Maya or the illusion of appearances, and that all we have is the here and now. The mind chatter disappears, and this is what's known and what is represented by the purified alchemical sign of Mercury as the super consciousness. Past, present, future combine into one eternal now, and we become channels for this higher will, this higher consciousness. So in many ways, I see this full moon in Gemini as a call to align with that higher will, despite all of the mental chatter and the complications of the illusion, and just align with that higher will and that higher purpose, using that really beautiful Capricorn ability to streamline our focus and our divine attention to only those things that are necessary. And tapping into that higher intuition of what is my path, that Mercury and Sagittarius, what is my higher path, and really shoot like an arrow towards those goals. So like a little mental purification this full moon, letting the light of the moon purify our mind, get into that super consciousness. Because, you know, Gemini can get really hung up on the social media, on the internet, on the he said, she said. Just really purify using that Capricorn element of this chart to anchor us into what is really important, focusing on our goals ahead, our commitments, our achievements, and get into that discipline and that focus to steady the mind. All right, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you would like to reach out to me for a reading, you're more than welcome to reach out to me at my website, which I'll put right here. And if you've enjoyed this video, please do give it a like and a share. I really appreciate it. All right, you guys, I will see you in next week's video. Have a good one.